Hey everybody, I'm Jesse, and welcome to another edition of Gen X Thinks. And today I'm going to talk about 5 tips for post-apocalyptic survival. And I don't mean surviving an apocalypse. Surviving nuclear war or an asteroid impact is mostly going to depend on luck for most of us. But after the fact, if we're wandering around in a post-apocalyptic world, there are some things that need to be taken into consideration, and some of them aren't always obvious. So I'm going to lay out 5 of these tips that aren't necessarily obvious to your average person. And the first one is that you've got to always be concentrating on the necessities: food, water, and shelter. Now, you can store up food, and it's a good idea to store up food and water, but there's absolutely no way any of us can store up enough food and water for an entire lifetime. So at some point, we're going to be forced to go out and gather it. And gathering these necessities, it's best to begin early. Don't wait until, you're out of food to go looking for food. Start looking for food a week before your rations run out, or a month even. So start early. Same way with water. And you need to have a way to purify water, because depending on the type of apocalypse, the type of situation you're in, the type of whatever, you definitely need to purify water. Even just groundwater today, I would be hesitant to drink any of the water just sitting around today. So it definitely needs to be purified. You can get purification things, but in my advice would be how to learn how to do it with natural element, how to purify water with natural elements, because you can get water purification tablets, but they're going to run out. You can't have a lifetime supply of anything. So you're going to have to learn how to do things off the land and the materials available that are provided by Mother Nature. So learning those skills will be paramount at some point. And the second thing is, when you're gathering food, fishing is a lot more efficient way to gather food than hunting. It's just fishing, you can sit in one place, because when you're hunting, you've got to move around and you're burning calories. And that's what gathering food is about calories burned versus calories earned. So you want to do something that burns the fewest calories and gathers in the most calories. So think about it like that. And for those of you who haven't watched every one of my videos prior, I grew up really poor, and I have done hunting and fishing out of hunger to supplement our diet for my brothers and sisters. So I have some experience in this. I'm not just I didn't just read an article online. I actually lived it. So I know what I'm talking about. You don't want to go out and spend, 10 hours looking for a deer when you can just go to the water and spend that same amount of time sitting still catching fish. Now that will depend on the water, the amount of fish in the water, and all that. But as a general rule, fishing is a lot more efficient. So remember that. And number 3, when you're thinking about hunting and fishing, we have these images that just come into our head. A man in an orange vest out there with a rifle, maybe sitting in a tree stand looking for a buck deer when you're hunting. Or somebody with a fishing pole hauling in a big lunker to get stuffed and hang on his wall or whatever. These are the ideas we have when we think about fishing. Oh, I'm gonna prepare for fishing in the post-apocalypse, so I get a couple of fishing poles, or I'm gonna hunt, so I go out and get a big deer rifle. All right, now that's called sport fishing and sport hunting, and that's not what we're talking about. These people spend a lot of money to get this kind of gear, and it's more about just being out in nature and spending time in nature for a lot of these kind of people who do this sport fishing and sport hunting. It's not about survival, all right? When you're talking about survival, your equipment will change. For survival, you'll want a fishing trap, because it doesn't matter how big the fish is, it just matters the weight of the overall catch you bring home. So if you're just looking for a 10-pound lunker, the odds are you're not going to catch anything. But if you bring in 10 pounds worth of small fish, it's the same amount of calories, but your odds are much higher, right? And you can also make a fishing trap. They're not difficult to make. It's a very simple idea in a fishing trap that it's easy for the fish to swim into it, but it's difficult for the fish to swim out of it. Not impossible, just difficult. The fish will get confused and can't find its way because it's a very specific, narrow way it has to go to get out. So just because you don't have one doesn't mean you can't make one out of available materials. And that goes back to the first thing I was saying, was available materials. Because a fishing trap, even one, if you were to purchase one now, which would be great, but it's not going to last forever. Eventually it will fall apart and you'll have to resort to something else. So the same thing with hunting. Birds and rabbits and small game like that are much more plentiful than deer, and they're easier to harvest. Now, there are all kinds of birds. Dove is really good bird to eat. I know a lot of people growing up and even now that eat dove and love dove. There's a dove season. A lot of people don't understand that. And a dove sounds kind of like an owl. For someone who doesn't have experience, you can confuse the two, a dove and an owl. A dove kind of coos where an owl hoots, but neither one of them make that songbird kind of sound. But doves and small birds like that, now you're not gonna drag home a 300-pound dove like you would a deer, but if you get a few of them, they'll keep your family alive or yourself alive. Number 4 goes along with that, but for different reasons. If you do go out and you harvest a large animal, you got several hundred pounds of meat, that's only going to feed you for about a week, even if you have a family, unless you're prepared to cure that meat, because it will spoil rather quickly, especially during the warmer days of the summer. So even if you do bring down a big game animal, it's not going to last a month like you would think it would, unless you're ready to salt and cure, smoke the meat, and preserve it for a month. So don't expect to go out and bag a deer and think that you're good for a month. It's not going to happen. That meat will be bad in, depending on the temperature, it could be bad in several days or a week at the most. You're not going to be able to eat it. And the final thing is the temperature, because without electricity, we have to assume there won't be any electricity. And in that instance, a lot of times heat will be more dangerous than cold, because you can go into your shelter on a cold day, snowing outside. You can come in and warm up next to the fireplace. It could be 10 degrees outside, but 65, 70 degrees in your shelter. That'll be a 55, 60 degree difference in temperature. So you can be comfortable in there and survive. Now, down here where I am in Florida, the summer heat, you just can't cool off to the same degree that you can warm up in the winter. If it's 97 degrees outside and you go into your shelter in the shade, now it's 87 degrees. That's still dangerous. You just lay down in there and swelter and sweat. It's hard to sleep. So you got to remember that, and it takes a lot more water to survive during the summer. You have to prepare for that. So you have to remember these things concerning temperature and weather, because that's a real danger, especially during the summer. If you're not prepared, if you don't have enough water, your odds of surviving go downhill drastically. Not to mention your comfort level. So you got to think about that when you're talking about surviving a summer, especially down here in the South. And I'll leave you there with that. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment. If you'd like to become a member of Gen X Thinks, I'll put that link down in the description, or you can head over to the channel page and join up there. If you'd like to support the channel, you can hop over to Buy Me a Cup of Coffee and buy me a cup of coffee. And I'll put that link down in the description too. Another way to support the channel is to click on that super thanks button down there. I appreciate those of you who do that. Thank you very much. If you're interested in Gen X gear, you can hop over to Redbubble and check that stuff out over there. T-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, stickers, all kinds of cool stuff. Gen X Thinks and Gen X branded stuff over there. I'll put that link down in the description as well, so you can go over there and check that out. If you can't or don't want to support the channel in any of those ways, you can always do so by sharing these videos on your social media. Thank you very much for those of you who do that. I sincerely appreciate it. It helps out a lot. If you have any ideas for future episodes of Gen X Thinks, please put those down in the comments, or you can email us, and the email's over on the channel page. And as always, stay frosty, Gen X, and I'll see you on the next one.